Just by watching this video, a winner is you. I'm just heading that off so that every comment on this video isn't that phrase. I'm a little bit surprised that Nintendo was reusing this music on their title screen all the way in 1986. I thought they had finished with that back in the early days of '84. If you can't place the tune immediately, they got used in a few sports games, most notably baseball. For the title of the game, well, it's just really pro wrestling. In Japanese, it's a loan word from English, but they abbreviate it. So it essentially winds up being pro wrestling over there. It's a little bit awkward bringing it back to English, but what can you do? Pro Wres was not the first wrestling game available on Nintendo's platform. Both Bandai and Namco beat Nintendo to the punch with this one, though it doesn't seem to have mattered a whole lot. I've held that there are no good 8-bit wrestling games, and Nintendo's Pro Wres certainly fits into that theory. Your goal in the game is to climb the ladder to the top of the Famicom Wrestling Association, then defend your title 10 times, after which a super wrestler will appear to try to take you out. The Famicom Wrestling Association only has 6 wrestlers in it, so that means you're playing 16 matches. Despite being on the Disk System, there's no way to save your progress or your wrestler's record, and matches take about 3 to 5 minutes, so you'll be playing effectively identical fights for a long time if you want to beat this one. The wrestlers available to you include Fighter Hayabusa, who is not based on the actual wrestler Hayabusa, as he would debut about a year later. The next wrestler is Starman, then Keencorn Karn, Giant Panther, perhaps the least sexy Amazon ever put into a video game, and finally King Slender, who has the exact same build as every other wrestler in the game. When you want to start the game, you have to hit left and right to select which wrestler you're going to use, and then you can choose to play 1 or 2 player. And you really don't want to play 1 player. To be upfront with this one, playing Pro Wres on your own is a horrible experience. It's marginally better with 2 players, because if the other player starts using some cheesy tactics to lock you down, then you just punch them in the arm and make them drop their controller. When the computer pulls the same move on you over and over again, you can't do that to it. The only thing you can do is learn a move that it has a complete blind spot to, and hit them with it over and over and over again. The action becomes painfully boring if you do this, but if you choose not to, then you just get jump kicked in the face infinitely. Every wrestler has about a dozen moves that they can perform, and to go over the most basic ones very briefly, the A button does a jump kick, while the B button does a punch. Double tapping in a direction will make you run, and if you get into a grapple, then you can mash the A or B button to throw your opponent. All of the wrestlers also have 1 or 2 special moves that are all their own. You'll need to know how to use these because they tend to take priority over other moves that your opponent is doing. And so if you do them over and over again, then you'll keep knocking them down. As you get beat up and knocked down, eventually there will be a sound telling you that your stamina is running low. If you get pinned after that, you're not getting back up. On the other hand, with your opponent, there is no sound. You'll just have to make a rough estimate on when it's okay to pin them based on how long it takes them to recover. To pin them, when they're on the ground, you just approach and hit A. When Pro Wres was released, it was extremely popular. It was the 5th best-selling Disk System game, with 1.4 million copies out there. Now that's a lot for 1986, but keep in mind, there were only about 4.5 million Disk Systems sold. So about 1 in every 4 people who had a Famicom Disk System had Pro Wres. The game still has plenty of fans in Japan. The most lasting legacy of Pro Wres is a result of its developer. Shortly after creating Pro Wres for Nintendo, the developer Tri would change their name. They became Human Entertainment, and Human Entertainment went on to make the Fire Pro Wrestling series, which makes Pro Wres the unofficial start of an enormous pro wrestling video game franchise. I think it's pretty obvious from what I've said so far that I do not like this game. Even if I didn't stumble across the fact that there's one move with Starman that makes him undefeatable, this just isn't an interesting game to play. There's not much you can do in the match except use your best move over and over again. It's not the worst wrestling game that you could play on a Famicom platform, That doesn't mean that it's any fun to play now.